Welcome to Keto Meals and Recipes.com. Today I'm starting a brand new series especially for the holidays, and this series is called My 12 Treats for Christmas and New Year. And to start off the series, I thought I would make these very easy sugar-free gingerbread crinkle cookies. If you've never made a crinkle cookie before, let me describe them to you. First of all, they're really amazing. They have a thin, hard, crusty layer, but the inside is really soft and moist. And the ginger and all the spices leave a terrific aftertaste. I'd like to ask a special favor of everyone. Please watch this video all the way to the end. As part of the teaching component of this video, I have included several tips that will make this a much more successful recipe for you to make. By the way, if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing, and to everyone, turn on your notification bell so that you'll be alerted when I post my next video. If you just subscribe, the new YouTube algorithm will use a random notification process, and you may not get all the notifications when I upload a new video. Because some explanation is needed throughout the video as I come to them, I will describe some of the ingredients and why they're used. Now, the macronutrient ratio for the sugar-free gingerbread crackle cookies is 3.1 to 1, with 3.3 grams of total carbs, 1.7 grams of dietary fiber, resulting in 1.6 grams of net carb per cookie. Before actually making the cookies, I like to get all my prep stuff done. So the first thing I do is I gather and measure out all the ingredients, and then I preheat my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 degrees Celsius, and I also line a baking sheet with parchment paper and set the baking sheet aside. Now the first thing I do is I take out my room temperature butter and put it into my mixing bowl. Now to the butter add the sugar-free sweetener. I use Lakanto Gold monk fruit based sweetener, which I always grind to a very fine confectionery powder, and if you're using your stand mixer, please use a paddle attachment. A whisk attachment will put too much strain on your mixer. And now whip for about 2 minutes, or until the butter is very light and looks fluffy. And because butter will stick to the sides of the bowl, don't forget to stop and scrape the bowl once in a while. Add the eggs one at a time, either whole or you can pre-beat them if you like. Whip to blend and incorporate the first egg before you add the second egg. At this point, the mixture may look curdled, but don't worry, everything will work out when you add the dry ingredients. Now it's time to add the blackstrap molasses. And after adding, just stir to combine. You may be a bit concerned because blackstrap molasses is not technically keto, and you're absolutely correct. However, the blackstrap molasses compared to fancy molasses has a stronger taste, so you need just a little bit of it. And one of the reasons why I do include blackstrap molasses, because blackstrap molasses actually contains vital vitamins and minerals such as iron, calcium, magnesium, vitamin B6, and selenium, to name just a few. But this is one of those ingredients that you'll actually have to decide for yourself if you want to include it or not. It can be excluded, but I highly recommend it, because if you leave it out, it does affect the color and the taste of the final cookies. But the choice is up to you. Now place a fine mesh sieve over the bowl before adding all the dry ingredients. I begin with almond flour, coconut flour, whey protein, ginger powder, cinnamon powder, clove powder, nutmeg powder, gluten-free baking powder, salt, which I ground to a very fine texture, and of course glucomannan. I use glucomannan frequently in my baking because it provides texture and binds everything together and is a great replacement for gluten in flour. Then whisk the ingredients in the sieve to sift them through. Once you've sifted all the dry ingredients and they're in the bowl, you can combine the ingredients by hand with a spatula, or if you're lazy like me, put the paddle attachment back on your mixer and mix until all the wet ingredients and dry ingredients have combined well and a nice smooth dough has formed. But don't overbeat. Too much beating will make the dough very tough. Now it's time to shape the cookies. I use a 1 tablespoon ice cream scooper, but you can also use a 1 tablespoon measuring spoon. It works just as well. Now it's time to scoop out the dough. but make sure you're just taking 1 tablespoon of dough. As you scoop out the dough, be careful not to compress the dough. You want the batter to be light and airy, and that's because you want the center of the cookies to be moist and soft. And if you press too hard to get more batter into your scoop, again, you'll get much harder cookies. And if you're looking for additional Christmas or holiday treat ideas, please click on one of the end links which I will provide. For example, one of the end links is my Keto Christmas Desserts playlist, or you can watch the Keto Thanksgiving recipe playlist, which is also great for Christmas meal ideas. Now back to the cookies. You'll notice here that in this version of the video, you'll now notice that after scooping out the dough, I carefully rolled the dough into a ball and then coat this ball in the powdered confectionery sweetener. Although this looks really good at first, I want to explain that I no longer do the cookies this way, and I did redo a second batch, but for whatever reason I forgot to turn on the camera or my battery was dead. I didn't get the footage I needed for the second version. So let me explain. Instead of rolling each ball in the dough and then rolling it in the confectionery powdered sweetener, I found that with every person who had a taste of the first batch of cookies, everyone thought they were way too sweet, which once you become keto adapted, you're much more sensitive to. So instead I just scoop out the cookies, do not roll them in the powdered sweetener, and as I mentioned in the second batch, just take the raw dough ball and put it onto your parchment lined cookie sheet. After making all 20 of your cookie dough balls, take your fingers and gently apply pressure to slightly flatten the cookie. And at this point, after making the dough balls, if you don't want to bake everything or you want to make them as prep ahead, just put them in a parchment-lined glass container, put on your airtight lid, and then you can store it in your freezer until you're ready to bake them at some future date. Now to bake the cookies. So place the tray with the dough balls into the preheated oven and bake for 10 to 12 minutes. These cookies will have a darker done edge at the bottom, but still look underdone at the top. But take them out of the oven at this point anyway. The internal heat will finish baking the cookies as they're cooling. And by taking them out at this point, what will happen is you'll get that really nice, moist, tender center. And here's a little technique I'd like to share with you to get that nice crinkle aesthetic on the cookie. When you've reached your counter, hold your tray of cookies about 8 inches from the surface and then just gently drop the tray onto the surface. This will allow the hot cookies to crackle a bit. Without removing the cookies from the tray, place the tray of cookies on your cooling rack and let cool for about 20 minutes. You have to leave the cookies alone because if you try to move them too soon while they're still hot, the cookies will crumble or fall apart. And after the 20 minutes and your cookies have cooled a bit, remove them from the cookie sheet and place them onto your cooling rack. It's really important at this point to let the cookies cool completely. And if you have time and for best results, leave the cookies on the cooling rack overnight so that they can dry out a bit. Now for the last step. Just before serving, take your reserved 1 tablespoon of confectionery sweetener and place it into a little sieve. And then just sprinkle the powdered sweetener over the cookies. Don't they look amazing? And now you've created a much healthier version of the sugar-free gingerbread crinkle cookies. And the second method, where you baked the raw cookie dough and sprinkled the sugar at the end, resulted in just the perfect degree of sweetness, where the ginger and all the other spices were very noticeable and none of the flavors overpowered each other. Now place the cookies on a nice platter and serve them with pride. And most of all, I hope that you and all your friends and family will enjoy them. If you like gingerbread cookies, I'm sure these will become one of your favorites very soon. To everyone, thank you for watching right to the end. I really appreciate it. For those of you who like this recipe and find my channel useful, I would really appreciate it if you buy me a coffee because that helps to support this channel. My Ko-fi link is in the description below. And happy holidays.